The galaxy was full of voices. On every world connected to the Council of Worlds, people spoke of trade, peace, and sometimes war. Fleets crossed between stars, carrying goods, knowledge, and rumors. Among these countless whispers, one line returned again and again, spoken in fear and with lowered voices. Do not fight the humans. No one knew exactly when the warning had first spread. Some believed it came from the first explorers who had stumbled across Earth, while others thought it was born from broken fleets that had vanished into the silent void. Wherever it came from, the message was always the same. Empires that had fought against humanity had never returned. On the shining world of NetNarrator, where the Grand Council of Worlds gathered, the warning was once again repeated. Inside the great chamber, lit by tall crystalline windows, delegates of 25 species argued. Their voices filled the hall with strange sounds, clicks, hums, deep tones, and sharp whistles. Counselor Zelvar, a tall and scaled being from the Vayari Dominion, struck the floor with his staff. The sound echoed and the voices slowed. His long tail twitched in irritation. These warnings are old stories, he said. Fear makes them grow larger with each telling. I say we should not let myth guide our politics. Humanity is a young race. They are clever, yes, but they cannot be more powerful than the combined fleets of the galaxy. Many in the chamber nodded, but others did not. Counselor Jirathi, a soft-skinned being from the Naylor Union, leaned forward. Her 4 eyes glowed faintly in the chamber light. And yet, she said calmly, the records show that no fleet sent against them has ever returned. Whole armadas vanish. Surely that cannot be ignored. The chamber grew tense. Everyone had heard the stories. Fleets of the Graal Empire that had flown into Sol's outer territories, never to be seen again. Merchant raiders who had attacked human convoys but left no wreckage, no signals, nothing. Just silence. Among the listeners sat a young strategist named Kalen of the Risari. He was not a counselor but an advisor. His people were known for long lives and sharp memories. Kalen's skin shimmered faintly with silver light as he sat in silence studying the arguments. He was younger than most in the chamber, but he had already earned respect for his ability to see patterns where others saw only confusion. Kalen had spent years studying humanity. He had read their history, translated their records, and followed their wars against each other. Humans fascinated him. They were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most advanced. Yet again and again they survived. And not only survived, they adapted. They turned losses into lessons and failures into victories. As the council argued, Kalen thought of one human phrase he had found in their records. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. Simple words, but they explained much about their nature. At last, the council speaker, an ancient being with translucent wings, raised her voice. We cannot live by rumors. If we wish to know the truth about humanity, then we must send observers. Quiet ones. Let us test them without declaring war. Only then will we learn if the warnings are true. The hall agreed with reluctant nods. No one wanted to risk open battle, but curiosity was stronger than fear. A plan was formed. A stealth expedition would be sent to the borders of human space. Kalen's heart stirred when he heard the decision. He was chosen as one of the advisors for the mission. The council believed his studies of humans would prove useful. When the meeting ended, Kalen walked slowly through the long halls of NetNarrator's council palace. The corridors were alive with color, glowing with soft lights drawn from the crystal windows. Yet his mind was not on the beauty around him. He thought instead of Earth, the blue and green world at the heart of human space. He remembered one of their old records, an ancient war on their own world. Humans had fought each other with fire and machines, destroying entire cities, and still they had rebuilt. What kind of people destroyed themselves and yet grew stronger afterward? A voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Jirathi, the 4-eyed counselor. She walked beside him, her steps silent. You are quiet, Kalen, she said. Do you doubt the council's decision? Kalen hesitated. He was careful with his words. I do not doubt the need for knowledge, he said slowly. But I fear what we may find. Humanity is not like the others. They are small, but they do not think small. If the warnings are true, then even observing them could be dangerous. Jirathi tilted her head, studying him with all 4 eyes. Then she gave a faint smile. Perhaps. But perhaps they are only a mirror showing us our own fears. We shall see. A month later, the expedition departed. Hidden ships left NetNarrator under coded orders. moving through quiet routes to reach human space. Their mission was not to attack, but to watch, to test. Kalen stood on the command deck of the lead vessel, the Silent Veil. Stars stretched before him, endless and cold. He felt both excitement and unease. For all his studies, he had never seen a human with his own eyes. Soon he would. As the ships traveled through the dark, Kalen opened his data logs once more. He read of human battles fought with courage when hope was almost gone. He read of small bands of humans holding against greater forces, simply because surrender was unthinkable. And he read of their explorers who crossed oceans and then stars, always reaching for what lay beyond. Each story carried the same spirit. Humanity did not stop. Even when broken, even when lost, they pushed forward. Kalen closed the log and stared at the stars. A question filled his mind, heavy and sharp. If the galaxy truly learned what humans were capable of, would anyone survive fighting them? Far away on Earth itself, humans continued their daily lives, unaware of the Council's secret expedition. Cities glowed at night, ships moved through orbit, and explorers prepared for the next great step into the unknown. But in the quiet spaces between the stars, the Watchers approached. And the old warning whispered across the galaxy still hung in Kalen's heart. No one returned after fighting humanity. The Silent Veil and its sister ships glided through the quiet of space like shadows. Their mission was clear: observe humanity, gather intelligence, and never reveal themselves. Every system was cloaked, every signal hidden. The Council had made it clear there was to be no direct conflict. Yet Kalen, the strategist, felt uneasy. He stood at the wide viewing panel, watching the stars slide by. His silver-hued skin reflected the faint lights of the deck. The crew moved quietly behind him, their voices low, their movements sharp and precise. They were experts in stealth operations, chosen for their discipline. But discipline alone could not erase his doubt. Humans were unpredictable. He had studied them long enough to know that they rarely acted as others expected. Where most species relied on logic or tradition, humans often followed instinct, improvisation, and creativity. That made them difficult to predict and even harder to defeat. Strategist Kalen, the captain said from his chair. "We are approaching the border of human space." Kalen turned. "Any signs of patrols?" "None so far," the captain replied. "Their border appears unguarded." Kalen frowned. He had read this before. Reports of humans leaving gaps in their defenses as if inviting intrusion. To outsiders it seemed careless, but he knew better. Humans often used such gaps as bait. "Proceed with caution," Kalen said. "Do not trust what you see." The captain nodded and relayed the order. The ships slowed, their movements becoming more cautious. They entered a quiet sector near the edge of human territory. A small colony world, bright with city lights, appeared on their scans. Around it moved several orbital stations and a handful of ships, none of them large war vessels. "It seems undefended," one officer said. "If this is their border, then they are careless indeed." Kalen leaned over the console and studied the display. The ships in orbit were civilian in design. Cargo haulers, transports, small patrol craft at best. To most observers, it would look like a weak point, a place easy to strike. But Kalen's instincts whispered otherwise. "Humans rarely leave their homes unguarded," he said softly. "If you cannot see the blade, it is because it is hidden." The captain gave him a doubtful look but did not argue. To test humanity's response, the expedition launched a probe, a small drone disguised as a drifting rock. It moved slowly toward the colony, silent and dark. The crew watched their displays carefully. For several minutes, nothing happened. The drone drifted closer, passing near one of the orbital stations. Then suddenly lights flashed from the station. A burst of energy struck the drone, disabling it instantly. At the same time, the small patrol craft came alive, their engines flaring as they moved into defensive positions. The crew of the Silent Veil exchanged surprised looks. "They saw it," one whispered. "How?" Kalen's expression remained calm, but inside he felt a chill. "Because humans look where others do not," he answered. "They expect danger even when none is visible." The captain ordered another test. This time a small decoy ship was sent, cloaked and silent. Its mission was to drift near the colony and see how humans would respond. The decoy slipped into the system, careful and quiet. For hours it moved undetected. The crew began to relax. Then, without warning, a formation of human ships appeared. They were not large, but they moved with precision. They surrounded the decoy, sending signals in human language, signals the crew could not fully understand. "They know it's not one of their own," an officer said in shock. "How can they tell?" Before anyone could answer, the human ships disabled the decoy with surgical strikes. They did not destroy it completely, they trapped it as if demanding answers. Kalen felt his unease deepen. "They are testing us as much as we test them," he said. "They know something is out here." The captain grew restless. "We came to observe, not to be hunted," he muttered, but Kalen shook his head. "No, Captain. This is their way. Humans pretend to be unaware until the moment they strike. They are not careless. They are watching us." The tension on the deck grew heavy. Officers worked their controls nervously, scanning for human ships. For hours they saw nothing, only the distant glow of the colony. Then the alarms blared. "Contacts," an officer shouted. "3 human ships approaching fast." Everyone froze. The cloaking systems were active. The expedition ships should have been invisible, yet the humans were flying directly toward them as if guided by unseen eyes. The captain cursed softly. "How can they see us?" Kalen's voice was calm, though his heart raced. "Perhaps they do not see us. Perhaps they only know where to look." The human ships drew closer. They were smaller than the silent veil, but their movements were sharp, full of purpose. Instead of spreading wide, they stayed tight in formation, ready to cover each other. "Shall we retreat?" the captain asked. Kalen hesitated. Retreat would be safe, but it would also teach them nothing. "Hold position," he said firmly. "Let us see what they do." The crew held their breath as the humans closed in. Then at the last possible moment, the human ships turned and sped away, vanishing into the void. Confusion filled the deck. "They knew we were here," an officer whispered. "Why did they leave?" Kalen answered quietly. "Because they wanted us to know that they knew. It is a warning. They are saying, 'We see you. Do not think you are hidden,'" the crew whispered among themselves. Some were unsettled, others angry. They had come expecting to study a careless young species. Instead, they found one that was cautious, aware, and far more skilled than expected. The captain turned to Kalen. "If they can detect us even when cloaked, then what chance would we have in open battle?" Kalen did not answer. He thought of the phrase whispered across the galaxy. No one returned after fighting humanity. For the first time, he understood why. Humans did not need overwhelming power. They had something more dangerous: awareness, creativity, and the will to turn even weakness into strength. That night, as the silent veil drifted on the edge of human space, Kalen stood alone at the viewing panel. Stars stretched endlessly before him, cold and silent, but somewhere among them humanity watched. He thought of the human history he had studied, battles where they had been outnumbered but never surrendered, wars where they had lost cities yet rebuilt stronger than before, times when others thought them broken, but they had only grown sharper. Now he had seen it with his own eyes. Even when they did not strike, humans fought with patience. They made their enemies uneasy. They made them doubt. And in war, doubt was often deadlier than weapons. Kalen closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "The Council will not believe what I tell them. They will not see the danger until it is too late." When he opened his eyes again, the stars seemed different. They were no longer silent. They seemed to echo with the unspoken truth of the galaxy. No one returned after fighting humanity. The silent veil remained hidden near the border of human space. Days turned into weeks, but the unease among the crew only grew stronger. Every time they tested humanity, the result was the same. The humans noticed. They never attacked recklessly, yet they always showed awareness. It was as though invisible eyes followed the expedition's every move. Kalen, the strategist, spent long hours studying the data they had gathered. He sat in the dim light of the strategy chamber, reviewing each recorded event. The probe destroyed in an instant, the decoy ship surrounded and captured, the human patrols that flew directly toward their cloaked vessels. He studied the patterns carefully. At first glance, the events seemed random, but Kalen had learned that nothing humans did was truly random. They hid their patterns within confusion, using unpredictability as a weapon. The captain entered the chamber quietly. "Strategist," he said, "you spend too much time with these records. You will wear yourself down." Kalen looked up, his silver-hued skin glowing faintly under the room's lights. I must understand them. If I cannot see the truth now, we may never return. The captain frowned. You believe the warnings are real? Kalen's voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Yes, more real than we wish to admit. That night, unable to rest, Kalen opened the deeper archives stored within the Council's hidden files. These were old records, accounts of past encounters with humanity, some of which had been sealed away. The Council rarely spoke of them, but Kalen had special clearance as a strategist. The first record he read was from the Growl Empire, nearly a century ago. The Growl had been proud and powerful, with fleets larger than most nations combined. Their commanders had dismissed humanity as weak and untested. They launched a campaign into human space confident of quick victory, but the record ended in silence. The Growl fleet never returned. No wreckage, no survivors, no signals. Only one faint transmission had been recovered before the silence. A single officer's voice filled with shock. They should not be winning. But they are. After that, nothing. Kalen leaned back, troubled. He opened another record, this one from the Othari Confederacy. The Othari were not conquerors but raiders. They attacked a human colony to seize resources, believing it undefended. At first, they succeeded. They destroyed the colony's small defense ships and captured the surface. But within days, human reinforcements arrived. Not just warships, but civilian craft armed for battle. Farmers, miners, and traders had taken up weapons. The Othari reported that the humans fought with a strange unity, as though every person was part of a single mind. The raiders were driven off, chased across 3 systems until no Othari ship was left. Kalen's chest tightened as he read. These were not just stories. They were warnings carved into history, and yet the Council had ignored them, calling them exaggerated or false. In the following days, Kalen shared his findings with the captain and senior officers. He stood before them in the strategy chamber, the records displayed as glowing projections. These are the shadows of the past, he said firmly. Each time a nation has challenged humanity, it has disappeared. These are not myths. These are facts. The captain studied the projections with troubled eyes. And you believe the same fate awaits us even if we are only observers? Kalen nodded. Humanity does not simply fight with weapons. They fight with memory. They do not forget. If they discover us here, they will not treat us as harmless. To them, we will be enemies. The room was silent. Officers shifted uncomfortably, whispering among themselves. Some wanted to retreat immediately, but others argued that abandoning the mission would anger the Council. Finally, the captain sighed. We will remain for now. But your words weigh heavily, Kalen. If what you say is true, then even observing them may cost us dearly. The next day, something unusual happened. A faint signal reached the silent veil. It was not in any known Council language, but Kalen recognized it immediately. It was human. A simple transmission repeating over and over. We know you are there. Leave now. The crew froze when they heard it. How? An officer whispered. They cannot know our exact location. Kalen closed his eyes. He could almost imagine the humans on the other side, calm and patient, watching them. They know enough, he said quietly. This is a warning. They are giving us a chance to escape. The captain looked troubled. Why would they warn us? Why not destroy us? Because that is not their way, Kalen answered. Humans do not fight unless they must. But when they do, they fight with everything they have. They are offering us mercy now because they do not yet see us as a threat. Despite the warning, the Council's orders were clear. The expedition was not allowed to retreat until they had gathered enough intelligence. So the Silent Veil and its fleet stayed, continuing their silent watch. Kalen's unease grew heavier each day. He spent more time studying the old records, searching for a pattern, a way to explain humanity's power. He found one clue that chilled him. In nearly every conflict, humans had begun at a disadvantage. They were outnumbered, outgunned, or unprepared, and yet within weeks or months the balance shifted. They learned from every mistake, adapted to every new weapon, and turned weakness into strength. Where others saw defeat, humans saw lessons. That was their true power. Kalen whispered to himself as he read, This is why no one returns. Because humanity never fights the same way twice. One evening, while reviewing human history, Kalen discovered something even more unsettling. In the deep archives, he found references to civilizations older than the Council itself. They were powerful once, spreading across many stars, but they were gone now, leaving only ruins and fragments. Some records hinted that these lost civilizations had once tried to conquer humanity in its early years of spaceflight. The details were unclear, but the result was always the same. Those civilizations vanished. No one could prove it was because of humanity, but the pattern was undeniable. Kalen stared at the glowing screen, his thoughts racing. Could it be that humanity had already erased empires before the Council even rose? Could it be that their resilience was not new but ancient? The thought filled him with both fear and awe. Humanity was not just another young species. They were something different, something the galaxy did not fully understand. Later, Kalen stood again at the wide viewing panel, staring at the distant stars. The captain joined him, silent for a moment before speaking. "You seem lost in thought, strategist," the captain said. Kalen's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "I have seen enough. I know now why no one returns after fighting humanity." The captain frowned. "And why is that?" Kalen turned to him, his silver eyes glowing faintly. "Because humanity does not allow defeat. To fight them is to teach them, and once they learn, they cannot be stopped. The first battle is the last chance anyone has. After that, humanity becomes unstoppable." The captain said nothing. His eyes turned to the stars where somewhere beyond, humans lived their daily lives unaware of the silent observers. Back on Kelnar Prime, the Council continued its debates unaware of the dread building aboard the Silent Veil. They argued about trade, politics, and alliances, dismissing the whispers of danger. But Kalen knew the truth now. The shadows of the past were not shadows at all. They were warnings carved into the very history of the galaxy. And if the Council refused to listen, then soon they too would learn the meaning of the phrase whispered in every corner of space. No one returned after fighting humanity. The Silent Veil drifted at the edge of human space, its crew restless and uneasy. Weeks had turned into months, and though no human fleet had directly attacked, their presence was always felt. Every test, every probe, every attempt at stealth had been answered with quiet, calculated precision. Humanity had seen them, studied them, and warned them to leave. But the Council was not satisfied. Across the galaxy, the debates on Kelnar Prime had grown louder. Many leaders dismissed the warnings, believing humans to be clever but not invincible. Others argued that humanity's strength was exaggerated by fear. At last, pride overcame caution. The Council approved something unthinkable, a coalition strike. Dozens of nations, once divided by rivalries, now joined forces. They believed that together, with overwhelming numbers, they could crush humanity and prove the legends false. When the order reached the Silent Veil, the crew fell into silence. Kalen stood in the strategy chamber, his silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. His heart sank as he read the Council's commands. "They have chosen war," he whispered. The captain slammed a fist against the console. "Fools, do they not understand what they are inviting?" "They do not," Kalen said quietly. "Or perhaps they refuse to see. Pride blinds them." The coalition fleet was vast. Hundreds of ships gathered in the dark void between the stars. War cruisers, carriers, and destroyers from many species. It was the largest military force assembled since the founding of the Council. From his place aboard the Silent Veil, Kalen watched the preparations with unease. The crews of Allied ships were confident, even excited. They spoke of quick victory and of silencing the myth that had haunted the galaxy for so long. But Kalen could not share their confidence. He remembered the old records, the vanishing fleets, the ruined empires. He knew what awaited them. The coalition fleet entered human space with great force. Their engines flared brightly, their weapons charged, their signals loud. They wanted humanity to see their power. At first, there was little resistance. A few human patrol ships appeared, but they did not engage. Instead, they vanished into the shadows of asteroid belts and nebulae. Some officers laughed, claiming the humans were afraid, but Kalen felt no joy. He knew this was not retreat. It was preparation. The first real engagement came near a mining colony. The coalition descended with overwhelming power, expecting an easy capture. The colony's defenses fell quickly, and for a moment victory seemed near. Then suddenly the trap closed. Asteroids shifted, revealing hidden human stations armed with powerful weapons. Civilian ships turned into fighters, launching surprise attacks. The human fleet appeared from the darkness, smaller but perfectly coordinated. The battle that followed was chaos. The coalition had numbers, but the humans had control. They struck at weak points, scattered the larger fleets, and used the environment as their ally. Every asteroid, every nebula became a weapon in their hands. On the silent veil, Kalen watched the battle unfold. His chest tightened as he saw entire coalition wings destroyed, not by sheer firepower, but by clever tricks and flawless timing. "They do not fight as others do," he said quietly. "They fight as if every battle is life itself." The coalition regrouped and pushed forward. They captured several systems, forcing human fleets to retreat. But the victories were hollow. Supply lines were cut, communications disrupted, and morale shaken. Every time the coalition thought they had cornered the humans, they found themselves surrounded instead. Every time they claimed victory, it cost them far more than expected. Kalen saw it clearly. The humans were not losing. They were shaping the war, guiding it like a river flows around stone. Weeks turned into months and the war spread. Coalition fleets grew desperate. Their numbers were still greater, but their unity began to break. Different species argued, blaming each other for failures. Meanwhile, humanity only grew stronger. Their tactics changed with every battle. Weapons were redesigned, strategies adjusted, mistakes never repeated. What had worked once against them no longer worked again. Kalen's words returned to him like an echo. To fight humanity is to teach them, and the coalition had taught them much. The breaking point came at the Battle of Duran's Reach. The coalition assembled its largest force yet, over 200 warships, determined to strike a decisive blow. They advanced with confidence, believing that sheer numbers would overwhelm any human defense. But the humans were ready. As the fleets clashed, Kalen watched from the silent veil. Human ships moved like dancers weaving through the battlefield. Their formations shifted constantly, making them impossible to predict. Coalition cruisers found themselves ambushed from behind, their supply ships destroyed before they could retreat. Then came the moment that sealed the coalition's fate. The humans lured the fleet into a dense nebula, where sensors were useless. Coalition ships struggled to navigate, colliding and scattering. But the humans knew the nebula's paths. They struck from hidden angles, cutting through the fleet piece by piece. By the battle's end, more than half the coalition's ships were gone. The survivors fled in panic, pursued by relentless human forces. Kalen stood in silence, his heart heavy. He had known this would happen, yet seeing it unfold filled him with awe and dread. Humanity had taken the greatest force the galaxy had ever seen, and broken it. After Duran's Reach, the coalition collapsed. Some nations withdrew, unwilling to lose more. Others tried to continue, but without unity they were easy prey. Humanity pressed forward not to conquer, but to ensure no further attacks would come. On the silent veil, the crew was silent as the reports arrived. The Council's great plan had ended in disaster. The captain turned to Kalen. "You warned them," he said softly. "But they did not listen," Kalen nodded. "They never believed the shadows of the past. Now they are living them." In the quiet after the war, Kalen reflected on what he had seen. Humanity had been tested by the greatest challenge the galaxy could give. And they had not only survived, they had grown stronger. The strategist's thoughts returned to one truth, repeated again and again across history. No one returned after fighting humanity. But now he understood something more. It was not just because humanity destroyed its enemies. It was because those who fought them taught them, and once taught, humanity could never be defeated. The coalition had gambled everything in pride and arrogance, and they had lost. Kalen stood at the viewing panel watching the stars. For the first time, he felt not just fear, but respect. Humanity was dangerous, yes, but they were also extraordinary. "Perhaps," he whispered, "the galaxy does not need to fear them. Perhaps it needs to learn from them." But he knew the Council would not see it that way. Pride had already led them to disaster, and pride, once wounded, often returned as anger. Kalen only hoped that humanity's mercy would hold. For if it did not, the galaxy would soon learn the final truth of the warning that echoed across every star. No one returned after fighting humanity. The galaxy was quiet. The great coalition, once proud and confident, had collapsed. Its fleets were shattered, its leaders scattered, and its plans for conquest reduced to dust. Survivors returned home slowly, carrying stories of a war they had underestimated, of a species they could not defeat. On the edges of human space, The silent veil drifted silently. Kalen, the strategist, stood on the observation deck, watching the blue glow of Earth far below. His silver-hued skin reflected the soft lights of the ship as he contemplated the outcome of the war. The humans had not sought to destroy the coalition entirely. They had acted with precision and discipline, showing power where necessary but holding back when possible. Humanity had not sought domination. They had defended themselves and, in the process, reshaped the understanding of the galaxy. Kalen could not stop thinking of the lessons he had learned. He had spent months studying humanity, watching their reactions and reviewing ancient records. He understood now why no one returned after fighting them. It was not simply that humans were powerful. It was that they learned from every encounter. They adapted, evolved, and turned every disadvantage into an advantage. They fought with a combination of courage, intelligence, and creativity that no other species had ever demonstrated. The captain of the Silent Veil approached Kalen, his expression grim. "I have never seen anything like it," he said. "We believed we could contain them, even outnumber them, and yet they have proven stronger than all our calculations combined." Kalen nodded slowly. "We have learned the truth," he said. "Humans are not a race to be underestimated. They do not fight for pride, conquest, or glory. They fight for survival and for everything they value. That is why they cannot be defeated once challenged." The captain sighed. "And now what? The council will want explanations, excuses. They will not accept that their pride led to disaster." Kalen's eyes gleamed softly. "The council will eventually see. Perhaps not immediately, but the records will remain. The history of this war will be taught as a lesson. Never underestimate humanity." Meanwhile, on Earth, humans continued their lives as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Ships left orbit for exploration. Scientists studied distant stars and children played in city parks. To them, the war was a distant story, a ripple across space that barely touched their daily lives. Yet humanity had learned much. They had faced a challenge unlike any before, an attempt by countless species to destroy them. They had survived and grown stronger, and through it all they had preserved their unity, their spirit, and their determination. Kalen thought of their resilience and wondered if the galaxy truly understood what they had witnessed. Humans were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They did not seek to dominate, enslave, or destroy. But when threatened, they were unstoppable. They had the ability to take the greatest challenges and turn them into opportunities for growth. Reports from the coalition trickled in over the following weeks. Survivors told tales of the human tactics, how they lured fleets into ambushes, how they adapted weapons mid-battle, and how even small groups could outthink and outmaneuver larger forces. Everywhere the same pattern emerged. Humans did not just fight. They learned, improved, and evolved. Kalen studied these reports carefully. Each one reinforced his understanding. Humans were not invincible by chance. Their strength came from their ability to adapt, their creativity, and their will to survive. And that combination made them unlike any other species in the galaxy. The strategist realized that humanity's legacy was not only in their victories. It was in the warning they now represented across the stars. Every species that had underestimated humans or sought to fight them had paid a high price. And every species that learned to respect them would benefit from that understanding. Kalen spoke to the surviving officers of the Silent Veil. "Remember what we have seen," he said. "Humanity does not seek to conquer, but they will protect what is theirs. They will adapt to every threat. They will never surrender. The galaxy must understand that this is not a threat to fear blindly. It is a species to respect, to learn from, and to approach with caution." The officers nodded silently, absorbing his words. Even those who had doubted humanity now understood the truth. Back at the Council of Worlds, the survivors of the coalition returned to report the disaster. Fear, shame, and disbelief filled the chambers. They told of fleets destroyed not by sheer force but by tactics, clever traps, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. Some council members refused to believe the reports. Pride blinded them, even in the face of overwhelming evidence. Others were shaken to the core, realizing that their assumptions about humanity had been dangerously wrong. Kalen's reports arrived shortly after, providing clear analysis of human behavior, past records, and the lessons learned from every engagement. His words carried weight, for he had witnessed humanity firsthand. He wrote, "Humanity cannot be conquered because they do not fight like other species. They learn, adapt, and survive. Their victories are not born of luck, but of understanding, creativity, and the will to endure. To fight them is to teach them, and once taught, they cannot be defeated." The phrase that had haunted the galaxy for decades, "No one returned after fighting humanity," was now more than a warning. It was a lesson. It was law in the hearts of those who had faced the humans and lived. Kalen returned to the observation deck of the Silent Veil one final time. Earth shone below, a jewel of blue and green, peaceful and calm. Humanity continued its daily life, unaware of the fear and awe it inspired across the stars. Kalen felt both fear and admiration. The humans were dangerous, yes, but also extraordinary. Their spirit, their courage, and their adaptability were unmatched. They were not conquerors, yet they were forces no one could easily defeat. He whispered softly to himself, "The galaxy has learned, and the humans, they continue, unaware of how strong they truly are." As the Silent Veil prepared to leave human space, Kalen reflected on the lessons humanity had taught him. They were not just warriors. They were survivors. They were thinkers, learners, and creators. Every battle they faced made them wiser. Every threat they encountered made them stronger. The galaxy would remember this war not as a conquest, but as a revelation. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Their victories would echo through history, their lessons recorded for generations to come, and the phrase that once inspired fear would now serve as a guiding truth. No one returned after fighting humanity. It was no longer just a warning. It was a testament. Kalen stood in silence as the Silent Veil left human space. Stars stretched endlessly before him, cold and silent. Yet he knew that somewhere out there, humanity continued to grow, to learn, and to prepare for whatever the universe might bring. The galaxy had seen their strength, but humanity, in its quiet way, had not sought recognition, nor conquest, nor vengeance. They had only lived, adapted, and endured, and that was enough to make them legendary. Kalen whispered to the stars, "May we remember what we have seen, and may we never forget what humanity has taught us." The ship moved onward, carrying its witnesses into the unknown. Humanity remained behind, unaware of the awe and fear it inspired, but ready, always ready, for whatever challenge the future might bring. And so the galaxy learned its greatest lesson. To challenge humanity is to invite disappearance. To respect them is to survive, and their legacy is only beginning.